Hello everyone and welcome back to another exciting episode of Boyographic, the show in which I, Matt, the Game Boy, talk you through the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one card at a time. This week we'll be looking at a game that had so much potential. It's Ghostbusters 2. So, licensed games. They're good or they're damn right awful. There very rarely is an in-between. They're either Alien 3 or Cool World. What I'm trying to say is there's not usually a shade of grey in the quality of games on the Game Boy, as that's reserved purely for the visual aesthetics. But Ghostbusters 2 is such a beautiful mess that if only a few little tweaks were made to it, it would seriously be on every best Game Boy game of all time list you've ever read. But unfortunately, that's just not the case. First off, let's dispel your fears about this game's European box art. The game, despite its looks and the fact it's published by Activision, has nothing to do with the NES title of the same name, as this game was actually developed by HAL Laboratory, the folks behind some of the best games on the system, including Kirby's Dream Land, Tracks, and Adventures of Lolo. It was actually released in Japan as New Ghostbusters 2, along with its Famicom older brother. However, due to Activision's licensing rights to the Ghostbusters franchise in the US, it never saw a release there. As a compromise, Activision got to publish the Game Boy title in Europe, while HAL published the version on the NES. Now that's out of the way, onto the game. You play as the titular Ghostbusters, Venkman, Ray, Egon and Winston, in a story that loosely follows the events of the movie. Dana's baby is kidnapped by Janusz to raise the evil Vigo. In order to get baby Oscar back, the Ghostbusters must battle through 3 challenging locations, all with multiple floors, racing against the clock to bust all the ghouls that haunt it. The game interestingly sees you take on these spooky spectres in a buddy system. You, the player, operate the proton pack with A, while your Buster buddy springs a trap with B. This is, at least on paper, the greatest idea for a Ghostbusters title imaginable. The game's isometric perspective made me think of Konami's Zombies Ate My Neighbours, and the simple idea of using 2 characters just makes total sense for the story. However, it is without a doubt the game's biggest weakness. First, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that your Beamer and Trapper both have individual lives, meaning if your AI buddy, whom you have no control over, gets hit 3 times, it's game over. Possibly the most frustrating thing in any game, a character you have no control over fucking up your game. It would be fine if the Trapper's AI were perfect, but it's far from it. HAL even seems to be aware of this by making the second character invincible during boss fights, as they would no doubt be impossible without it. They ain't afraid of no ghost, but it seems the Ghostbusters in this game are also terrified of walking around corners, meaning the amount of time you'll spend untrapping your Trapper from walls so they can follow you again will become exacerbating. What's worse is they'll often get caught inches away from a ghost who'll instantly kill them because there's nothing in their programming to dodge. For fuck's sake. What's even worse about it is Activision were clearly aware of it. If you look at the hint section of the game's manual, it even gives you the tip: be careful not to get stuck on the top of the walls in the subway. If one of your characters does, you'll have to discover a way to free him. Fuck you! How about you allow a screen reset when your Buster gets trapped off screen, so he automatically teleports to my location? Don't make me waste time untrapping him because of poor programming. Unfortunately, this is the hand that we were dealt with Ghostbusters 2. So, now we're aware of the biggest flaws, let's try and focus on the more positive aspects of this game, such as the visuals. As for all its faults, the game looks pretty damn spiffy in my opinion. The Ghostbusters themselves even have a pop vinyl vibe to them, which really makes me smile. The cutscenes between levels also remind me a little bit of Hammer and Harry, which makes me despair that the game doesn't live up to this same level of quality. While the levels themselves don't offer much in visual variety, fortunately the ghosts that haunt them do. Among them are some familiar faces from the movie, including the Jogger, Slimer, and the haunted fur coat, but also some more bastardly ghosts created purely for the game, such as the whirling dervish, disappearing clown and floating heads. Not only do these ghouls look visually interesting, but they all possess differences that really mix up the gameplay, even if they do make the flaw in your AI partners even more apparent. Scattered around the level are the other Ghostbusters, meaning that while you pick two characters at the start of the game, you're never going to be busting with the same two for very long, as finding and interacting with another Ghostbuster will give you access to a power-up item that were oddly missing from the Famicom version. These items include a lab coat that makes you invincible for a short time, a super trap that lets you trap ghosts without your partner, and a clock that extends your allotted time. Though don't worry if you do run out of time, it simply means that the ghosts around the level will turn into Ghostbusters logos and fly around through the walls, which I kind of exploited in the later levels of my playthrough. The bosses in Ghostbusters are all pretty challenging and surprisingly plot relevant. From the Scolari brothers in the courthouse, the ghost train in the subway, and the final battle against the very anime Janosch and Vigo, you will sure need to keep on your toes and shoot your proton beam like your lives depended on it, as you only get 3 continues before it's game over. All in all, Ghostbusters 2 is a game that could have been great, if not for the glaringly obvious problems with the second Ghostbusters AI. This would have been one of my favourite titles on any system. It's got unique gameplay, it's challenging, it looks amazing, and is until the later stages incredibly fun to play. I would love for this game to have a 2-player option akin to Roland's Quest, where you and a buddy could take on Vigo's forces independently, not only making it more like zombies, but making it a richer game for the experience by allowing you to avoid its biggest flaw. Please, if you're interested in unique games, don't let this glaring problem with the game's AI dissuade you from trying Ghostbusters 2. It feels like a game true to the franchise and has a lot of the charm of a regular HAL Labs title, but by no means break the bank in your purchase of it, as despite the potential for a truly great experience the game offers in its opening levels, you'll be left as bitter as I am by the experience at the end, that HAL really let what could have been one of the best games on the system slip through their fingers due to truly obvious and avoidable design flaws. And that brings us to the end of another episode of Boyographic, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed. If you have, please subscribe and be sure to let others know about the channel if you know anyone who's interested in Game Boy games. That's how the channel gets around. Leave a comment and let me know what you think of Ghostbusters, if you played it or if you're interested in playing it now you've seen this video. And if you were interested in some other Game Boy titles, you can check out our Boyographic series, which I, Matt, the Game Boy, will show you the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one card at a time every week. You can also check out our Boy Curious videos, in which I look at some bootlegs and oddities for the Game Boy. I have 2 lined up that are absolute stinkers of Game Boy games, but I need to build up the patience to play them a little bit, I think. And you can also check out our All the Glory videos, in which I go through an entire game, cutting out all my deaths, leaving you with none of the faff, but all of the glory. Until next week, guys, you can find me on Twitter at Gameboy, and until then, Game Boys and Girls, game on.